BTS News Today. The night in Seoul was unlike any other. The city, usually trembling with neon and rhythm, seemed to pause, holding its breath as if waiting for something ancient to awaken. A soft wind brushed against the Han River, carrying whispers of time, of generations unseen yet ever present. And in the heart of that silence, under a dome of trembling light, stood Jungkook. He wasn't just a performer tonight. He wasn't just the golden magne the world had adored for more than a decade. Under the stage lights, wrapped in fabric that shimmered like the threads of forgotten dynasties, Jungkook looked like a vessel of history itself. Every beat of his heart seemed to echo with something older than fame, something sacred. The world had gathered, both physically and virtually. Millions of eyes, millions of souls, tuned in from every corner of the earth. The screen behind him glowed not with words, but with symbols, brushstrokes of Korean calligraphy that meant bloodline of dreams. And then, in a voice that trembled between power and prayer, Jungkook spoke. We carry all our ancestors' stories, even when we don't know their names. For a long moment, the crowd didn't move. His words fell like rain in a desert, soft, healing, and unanswerable. Behind the stage, Jimin stood in the shadows, watching. He had no microphone that night, no choreography, no part to play, at least not officially. But the connection between them was palpable. Jungkook's voice reached into the silence, and Jimin's eyes followed it, as if tracing the invisible line that connected them both to something deeper than music, something rooted in the soil of memory. The song Began.it was new, unreleased, and unnamed until that very night. But it felt timeless, as though it had been sung 1,000 years ago by nameless souls who worked, dreamed, and wept beneath the same moon. The melody began with a single note of the Gaegeum, followed by a modern bass that Jungkook had produced himself. The fusion of ancient sound and modern rhythm was deliberate, an act of rebellion and reverence in equal measure. As the lights shifted from crimson to gold, Jungkook closed his eyes. His body moved not with choreography, but with instinct. It was as if the rhythm remembered him, as if the dance had been written into his blood long before he was born. The world saw art, Jungkook felt inheritance, and then, midway through the song, he did something unexpected. He turned toward the camera and whispered, "To those who came before me, thank you." The crowd didn't cheer immediately. They gasped. For a fleeting moment, every army watching understood that this wasn't a concert. It was a ceremony. The backdrop changed again, revealing moving images of mountains, oceans, and the small, trembling flame of a candle. On the other side of the stage, Jimin appeared, not in spotlight, but in shadow. He moved slowly, gracefully, as though part of Jungkook's memory. The two never touched, never spoke, yet their synchronization was uncanny. Jimin embodied presence, Jungkook embodied voice. Together, they told a story that words could never hold. When Jungkook hit the high note, it wasn't just pitch, it was invocation. Every syllable carried echoes of those who had once dreamed of being heard, those who had never been given a stage, those who had lived and died in silence. And Jimin's movements, like flowing water, became the spirit that accompanied the voice. Guiding, mourning, blessing.it was in that instant that something extraordinary happened. The stage lights dimmed to black, and one single beam illuminated Jungkook's face. He wasn't crying, but his eyes glistened, catching the reflection of that lone flame projected behind him. He lifted his hand toward it, as if reaching through centuries, and whispered, barely audible but eternally imprinted, "I am because they were." When the lights returned, Jimin was gone. Only the echo of his presence remained, like a soft wind after the storm. And yet, every viewer could feel it, that invisible thread between them, vibrating with something unspoken. Jungkook continued singing, but now, every lyric felt heavier, richer, older, as if he was not just performing a song, but awakening an entire lineage of forgotten dreams. That moment, time lost meaning. Seoul became every village, every mountain, every ancestor's hearth. The city lights reflected on the Han River like tears of memory. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "He's not singing for us. He's singing from us." The applause that followed was not thunderous, it was trembling. like rain after drought, hesitant but alive. In that silence between breaths, Jungkook's chest rose and fell as though he was carrying not only his own heartbeat, but 1,000 others whispering through his veins. Backstage, the hum of machines and murmurs of crew filled the air. Jimin watched from the narrow hallway behind the curtain, still half in shadow. He had witnessed Jungkook perform countless times, but tonight felt different. It wasn't perfection that held him, it was revelation. The kind that comes only when an artist becomes transparent, when the distance between body and soul collapses completely. He had seen it once before, in a rehearsal years ago, when Jungkook sang alone in an empty studio, barefoot and unaware anyone was watching. That same rawness was here again, magnified by the immensity of the stage. Only now, there was gravity, ancestral, eternal, pulling him inward. Jimin pressed a palm to his chest, almost unconsciously. He could feel Jungkook's vibration from afar, as though they shared a single frequency of breath. His lips parted, whispering words that no microphone would ever catch. You're not just singing, Kooky, you're remembering. On stage, the screen behind Jungkook shifted again, now showing fragments of family archives. Grainy black and white images of farmers, soldiers, artists, mothers with worn hands. Faces with no names, eyes with endless light. They were not his literal ancestors, but they were everyone's. In their silence, there was universality. A child's voice joined his, recorded, distant, pure. It spoke in Korean. Halmiani, do you hear me? I am singing your song. It was Jungkook's own voice as a boy, taken from an old home video. The crowd gasped, recognizing it. He had woven his childhood self into the music, a bridge between who he was, who he is, and who he is yet to become. Jimin stepped closer to the side of the stage, where the light grazed his skin but never revealed him completely. He could see Jungkook's silhouette framed by gold, and for a moment, it looked like something divine, a sculpture carved out of living sound. He remembered how Jungkook used to say, half-jokingly, "Maybe our blood remembers what our minds forget." That line had sounded poetic once. Now, it sounded prophetic. As the song entered its final act, Jungkook removed the microphone from its stand. The stage lights faded until only the flickering projection of the candle remained. He sang unamplified, his voice unguarded, carried by the natural acoustics of the hall. And even through the vastness of the arena, his voice reached every corner, soft, trembling, naked. Every word seemed carved from history. I walk in the dust of their footsteps. In dreams, I hear their names. Their courage breathes within me. Their love is my flame. A hush fell, the kind that only truth creates. Jimin's eyes glistened. He had always known Jungkook was extraordinary, but this was beyond artistry. It was invocation. The younger man had turned his body into a vessel for those who came before him. Then, an unexpected sound. A drumbeat. Slow. Ancient. It wasn't part of the original arrangement. The staff exchanged looks, wondering if there had been a cue error. But Jimin knew instantly, it wasn't an accident. It was a calling. Jungkook began to move again, following the drum's pulse. His hands traced invisible patterns, like calligraphy in the air. Every motion echoed Korean traditional dance, yet was transformed by his modern grace. His movements spoke of survival, exile, return. The stage became temple, battlefield, home, and when the final beat struck, Jungkook knelt. The audience, tens of thousands, fell utterly still. He bowed low, forehead touching the stage, and stayed there. 1 breath. 2. 10. Backstage smelled of sweat, cables, and silence. Not the ordinary silence of rest, but the kind that lingers after something sacred has taken place. Jungkook stood near the back curtain, still trembling faintly, the warmth of the stage lights fading from his skin. His hair clung to his forehead, damp with both sweat and emotion. Around him, staff members moved quietly, their usual chatter muted by reverence. Someone handed him a towel, another offered water. He nodded absent-mindedly, barely seeing them. His eyes were still somewhere else, on that invisible place between centuries where he had just been. The echoes of the drums still pulsed in his veins. Then he heard footsteps, soft, measured, familiar. Jimin, the older man, didn't speak at first. He simply walked up to Jungkook, his own shirt clinging to his back after moving silently across the stage shadows. For a few seconds, they stood side by side, their breaths uneven, their chests rising in unison. Jimin was the first to break the silence. "You didn't just sing tonight," he said softly. "You remembered." Jungkook turned his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "I don't even know how to explain it," he murmured. "It felt like I wasn't alone, like they were all there. My grandparents, their grandparents, and everyone before them, even the ones whose names are gone." Jimin smiled faintly, eyes still glistening. "Maybe that's what you were meant to do," he said. "To remind people that music isn't just sound, it's memory." Jungkook exhaled deeply, almost a sigh. He sat down on a metal equipment box, elbows on his knees, head bowed. "When I said, we carry all our ancestors' stories, I didn't plan it. The words just came, like they were waiting." For a long while, Jimin said nothing. He only listened, his hand brushing against Jungkook's shoulder lightly, a silent gesture of grounding. Outside, faint cheers could still be heard from the arena. The encore chants were softer now, fading into a hum. Jungkook didn't move to return. He wasn't chasing applause tonight. The performance had already transcended all that. He looked at his hands, still trembling, and whispered, "When I was singing, I saw faces. I don't know who they were, but I felt them. It was like the music wasn't mine anymore." Jimin's voice was low, almost reverent. "It never was, Kook. None of it ever really is. We just lended our voices." Those words hung in the air, heavy and pure. Jungkook looked up, meeting Jimin's eyes. For a brief moment, something passed between them that no camera could ever capture. A shared knowing, ancient and immediate, as though two rivers of the same source had finally met. Jimin broke the gaze first, laughing softly to cut through the emotion. "You scared the crew, though," he said, a teasing warmth returning to his tone. "That drum part, no one knew it was coming." Jungkook chuckled quietly, wiping his face. "It wasn't planned. I don't even know where it came from. It just happened." He looked off into the distance, eyes flickering like candlelight. Maybe it was supposed to. The two of them walked toward the dressing area together, passing walls lined with photos of previous BTS tours, memories of youth, wild nights, thunderous crowds. And yet, what had just happened on that stage felt bigger than any of it. It wasn't about fame, nor even legacy in the modern sense. It was about lineage, the invisible thread tying them all to something infinite. Inside the dressing room, the air felt calmer. Jimin sat across from Jungkook, both too full of thoughts to speak. Finally, Jimin said, "You know, when you bowed, it reminded me of something my grandmother used to say." Jungkook glanced up. "What?" She said, "Every bow you make in gratitude keeps your ancestors alive a little longer." Jimin said softly, "When I saw you kneel, I thought, maybe that's what you were doing, keeping them alive through you." Jungkook swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. "Maybe that's what we all do," he said. "Through the songs, the performances, the love we share. Maybe all of this, BTS, the music, the moments, it's our way of remembering them." A pause. The kind of pause that feels like prayer. Jimin nodded slowly. "Then tonight wasn't just your greatest moment," he said. "It was theirs too." The weight of that truth hung between them like incense, delicate and eternal. Jungkook leaned back, closing his eyes, his heartbeat slowly settling into rhythm with something deeper than himself. From somewhere beyond the door, a faint melody drifted in, someone replaying the recording of his performance. The line echoed softly, "I walk in the dust of their footsteps." Jungkook opened his eyes and whispered almost to himself, "I hope they're proud." Jimin smiled, voice steady. "They are, Jungkook. You made the world feel their presence tonight." And for the first time in hours, Jungkook smiled, quietly, peacefully. Not the dazzling grin of an idol, but the serene smile of a man who had just spoken to eternity and been heard. Outside, the Seoul night deepened. The Han River shimmered with city lights, but its reflection seemed different tonight, older, wiser. Somewhere far away, a single candle flickered on an ancestor's altar, as if in answer.